Hi, this is Marina from Darkstar Astrology, bringing you the March the 1st full moon in Virgo at 11 degrees Virgo. I've also got a new Blue Yeti microphone, so let me know if I need to change the settings because I'm keeping the old ones. And I've had a tooth pulled out, so I don't know if I'm going to sound a bit whistly. Anyway, so all new voice today. So this full moon brings up themes of the victim savior archetype since it falls on the fixed star Zosma, which is found on the flank of the lion's back. Now, unusual for restrained Virgo energy, this star brings a lion's bite to the full moon. The mystique continues with the fact that the full moon is also opposite Neptune, which makes these martyr tendencies more likely to emerge at this full moon. There's also a sadomasochistic element here too, which might come out in the news headlines around this time. And so, just look out for bondage-style fashion and love-hate imagery in the media. So let's look at this fixed star in more detail. It's called Zosma. It's spelled Z-O-S-M-A, and really it doesn't have the best of reviews. At its very worst, you can see that it really does have all the makings of the professional victim. Zosma is on the back of the lion, as I said, and Robson says it causes benefit by disgrace, selfishness, egotism, immorality, meanness, melancholy, unhappiness of mind, and fear of poison, and gives an unreasonable, shameless, and egotistical nature. So, I think this star also gives, it gives an alert mind, but also a tendency to melancholia. Other commentators have associated Zosma with drug addiction, but there are more positive reviews. Bernadette Brady says that since the star is placed just where Hercules crushed the Nemean lion, it represents anti-establishment beliefs that are totally destroyed. She says that Zosma is present in the charts of victims of people who are abused by the system. The planet that is involved with Zosma, well, in this case it's the moon, will potentially involve suffering, perhaps through the person's naivete, allowing them to be led into victimizing situations, or perhaps by their working as a social worker or caregiver. This is not a star of glory or fame, but rather of the invisible work of dealing with the victim in oneself or in others. And the moon obviously represents the people, the populace. So this is the themes going on in the collective at this time. I would say that karmically, Zosma willingly sacrifices itself in order to pay back from when it was selfish, egotistical, or immoral, etc., etc. And we may see some famous, rich, and powerful people who have abused their position appearing to repent at this full moon. A good example of this payback generally may be, say, an ex-drug pusher who later works as an addiction counsellor. And Zosma, along with Coxa, which is also in Leo, the constellation of Leo, is said to give the ability to prophesy. And of course, the full moon is a very psychic time anyway. So I have another post, I'll link to it below, which is called Are We Moon Food? And I think that will be quite a useful one to read for this full moon as well, because it's got similar themes. So this full moon is in Virgo Decan 2, and there is a specific meaning for Zosma on its own in Bernadette Brady's book, Star and Planet Combinations, that's what it's called. She says that it's the pacifist or the warmonger, to hate, to enjoy the suffering of others, or to be sympathetic to the pain of others. So it's a really extreme position for the moon where there seems to be no grey area at all. This is for the moon being here in Virgo Decan 2. Either it's a sinner or a saint, and as stated before, it really does have a sadomasochistic tendency where pain is a theme for good or ill in one's life. Now, Madonna and the Marquis de Sade, or de Sade, have this natally. So, go figure. At this full moon, we have the choice to be the empathetic nurse or the torturer. Much depends on the evolution of the soul and how conscious we are. Those who let themselves become literally unconscious through the use of drugs or alcohol lay themselves open to being possessed by demons who enjoy inflicting pain on others. So again, have a look at this Are We Food, Moon Food post, because that talks about that as well. On the positive side, this full moon is just perfect for the artisan and craftsperson who is very skilled and produces very fine and detailed works. Their precision and perfectionist traits are enhanced by this Virgo full moon to the highest potential. This can be utilized by working with styles that require intricate and delicate operation of tools, like, say, for example, lace making, etching, or fine jewelry making. So at this full moon, we can weave our heart and soul into each of our creations. Another tendency for those touched by this full moon will be the inability to take criticism from its superiors. Especially affected are the very people who dish out very cutting critiques of others. So at this sensitive full moon, however, they will feel extremely wounded if they receive the same back. So the aspect is the moon is opposite Neptune. So the hypersensitivity of Virgo Decan 2 is further highlighted by this absorbent Neptune. The moon can fall victim to negative Neptune because of its tendency to do things unconsciously. The moon, the public, can be very easily hypnotized by Neptune's promise of salvation. Moon opposite Neptune is not out to deliberately deceive, though it can seem that way. So this aspect is also, it does have a Joan of Arc or a Florence Nightingale type of energy. So actually, with the hard aspect of the opposition, it could save the aspect dissolving into the mist altogether, and it does give it some practical application. This fantastical imagination works very well in show business since the hard aspect turns the fantasizing into something concrete. The movies with all their glamour and melodrama are just perfect for this full moon. But remember to keep a critical eye out for that matrix programming. Generally, this aspect is one of the most sensitive and compassionate, but we have to be careful that the idealism is not misplaced, unrealistic, or impractical. So yeah, generally full moons give us a tendency to purge and release things from our lives, but we need to make sure that we're in control of this and no one is forcing our hands. Sometimes we can let go of things we regret later due to heightened emotions and the moon's perchance for saying F you, basically. The bright light of the sun throws a spotlight onto our subconscious and our shadow, and this can feel uncomfortable as the sun literally blasts out the demons who have nowhere to hide. Often the full moon is a time when we reap what we sowed at the new moon, for good or for ill. So I've put a little list of things to do at the full moon for a kind of healing meditation, because really this is a very sensitive one, and anything that's any purging that happens, any healing crisis that happens, you can have quite painful contractions. So to ameliorate that and to make the gods work for you, I think the solution is immersing yourself in this Virgo Decan 2 energy. So if your ascendant, sun or moon are in the mutable signs Decan 2, you might be feeling extra sensitive to this full moon and want to take time out to heal and look within. So these are the props that are associated with this decan. The tarot card, the Nine of Pentacles, St. John's wort, which is an antidepressant, and it can be quite depressing at this time anyway. Violets, thistles, ivy, amazonite crystal. So I picked this crystal because it's associated with both Virgo and Venus, and Venus is the planet that rules this decan as well, this decan of Virgo. And I looked it up with the Crystal Bible, Judy Hall's Crystal Bible, and it's interesting because maybe this is why I've been pulled towards it, because it's supposed to be beneficial for tooth decay. It heals and opens both the heart and throat chakra to enhance loving communication, also opens the third eye and intuition. The stone dissipates negative energy and blockages within the nervous system. It's beneficial in osteoporosis, tooth decay, calcium deficiency, and calcium deposits. God, I can't speak today. It's the tooth. I'm getting used to this missing tooth. It's really annoying. Now, one thing Amazonite is really good for as well is blocks geopathic stress. So it absorbs microwaves and cell phone emanations and protects against electromagnetic pollution. So that's really useful. Yeah. And it's an extremely soothing stone, calms the brain, nervous system, aligns the physical body with the etheric, and it balances masculine and feminine energies and many aspects of the personality. Oh, it's a stone that also helps you see both sides of a problem and different points of view. At an emotional level, it soothes emotional trauma, alleviating worry and fear. It dispels negative energy and aggravation. Okay, so that's your healing crystal. And then I also looked up the essential oils for Virgo as well. And a nice combination would be frankincense, lavender and bergamot. So stick that in a bath for your full moon bath. And I think it's good to do these little rituals. Just it taps you into the energy and helps you understand the different archetypes, because each decan does have a different feel about it. But the theme of the victim is something that is been in the consciousness for a long time, especially with the whole #MeToo campaign. Well, there is another one. Now, this one hasn't been popularized so much, and but I think it's an interesting one. It's #120 decibels, and that's basically these alarms you can buy in Germany. For women are buying now that let off an alarm if they're being harassed, and that's the loudness of it. So this has been quite a successful one, apparently. But the thing is, I'd never heard of it until very recently, just from one of the YouTubers I watched. So, it's an interesting one, because these alarms, they weren't for sale. When I was younger, I'd never heard of such a thing. And obviously, the market comes out with things when there's demand, and people are buying these alarms. And you could say, is it because they're being scared, or is it a real thing? And this is a problem, is like how much of everything in the media is there to scare you and to make you feel victimized. How much of it is true and how much isn't. So I think the only way we can get around this is to, see what's there with our own eyes, and really limits our news feed. And actually my cousin brought up a very interesting observation from on Instagram. She's a yoga teacher, and she said, I'm deleting a lot of my news feed. And then she said, and feed is an interesting word, because a lot of it doesn't make me feel good. It's making me feel sick. So it's like you're not able to stomach these things. And I've been having digestive problems recently as well. So it's like you do have to limit what you're feeding yourself from social media. And I was quite shocked, really, because this is Instagram. I thought Instagram was probably one of the least political ones you could get, because it's just pictures. What can pictures do? But because she's a yoga person, she said, I'm just getting really annoyed with so many, I don't know what it is. She said just like bikini yoga girls with like cups of coffee, or I don't know, something about it that she just found very, it didn't feel good to her. So even these like very, throwaway things that you think it's just a picture, can also, because it works on your subconscious. So, and also another thing I've been watching, I like historical dramas, so I tend to watch those. When you're feeling ill and you want to watch a box set or a mini series or something like that. So I tend to watch those because they're set in the past, so they're not going to have too much well, hopefully not too much politically correct crap in them. But the thing is with those, I've been watching, first I was watching Peaky Blinders because I heard that was supposed to be good, but it got so violent I couldn't watch it anymore. The point where they started, the Italians were pulling out these gangsters' tongues, cutting it out, and I just thought, no way, okay, stop it now. So I stopped watching that, and then I thought, I want to watch the Borgias. God, why do I pick these things? The First Crime Family, and that one was just sex all the time. Like one episode, it just was constant for about 20 minutes, and just one after the other. I just thought, for God, do you have to? Do you have to? The only thing that I've watched, which is really nice, that I've been watching with my daughter, is Victoria, Queen Victoria. Probably because Victorian values, and that doesn't have any rude bits in it. Or if they do, it's kind of quite sweet. Oh, another thing to this is to contrast it with something that was made by Russians, Catherine the Great. Fantastic. It's subtitled, yes, but it's none of the things that I saw in the other Netflix stuff were there. For example, this is about Catherine the Great, so she's a queen. I noticed all the other, because I seem to watch a lot of historical dramas about queens. I don't know why. Well, they only seem to do them about queens, really, and it's because my daughter's really into all that, so we watch them together. And there's always something where, like Victoria, Queen Victoria, or Mary, Queen of Scots, has to come up against like misogyny, you know. So there's always some minister or somebody that wants to put obstacles in her way and says, oh, you can't do that, madam, and oh, you know, are you really sure you can handle this, and all this kind of stuff. Now, in Catherine the Great, there was none of that. I never saw it once. There was no sexism, misogyny, or anything against Catherine the Great. So, and this is interesting, you know, it's strange, since Russia's always been portrayed in the media as being such a misogynist country. So but when they make their historical dramas about their queens, there's none of that. So I don't know. And it was refreshing. It was refreshing to watch. And she came after. I didn't know anything about Catherine the Great. I heard vague things about her being obviously she's called the Great, so she must have done something great. But she came after another empress. There's a few Russian empresses as well that I didn't know about, and no problem at all. And Catherine the Great, then I watched a Russian documentary about her, which I must look into her chart as well. But anyway, the point is that watching that series made me feel really good, really nice, and it was empowering for me as a woman to see such a great role model. But none of it was done, it wasn't done in a way that sort of, you go girl, do you know what I mean? That annoying sort of, she was just a human, and I didn't see her as being a female at all. She was just an amazing leader, and there wasn't any of these kind of like little snarky things added in to make you think, oh my God, things were so bad for women then, and they're so much better now. Well, no. Anyway, so that's my little rant. And yeah, so that sort of ties in with this Virgo victim thing. It's like, you don't have to show that women were victims of misogyny or whatever to empower them. In fact, all it does is, it doesn't empower you, it just makes you annoyed, because, well, it just makes you it just riles you up. Well, it makes me annoyed because I know what the propaganda is and what they're trying to do. But if I wasn't, then I'd be probably annoyed and think, what these men were such bastards then. And thank God for these days, we're so ahead. And then it makes you sort of grateful that you're in such a in better times. But I don't think we are in better times. I'm really not. So just showing you how awful things were in the past to make you appreciate what's happening now really does show how bad things have got, that you need to keep, they have to keep lying to you all the time. You know, lies need to be repeated because the truth doesn't need repeating all the time. The truth will come out in the end, and that's what's happening with everything now. And it because you can't hold it in. If you hold it in, it'll make you sick. And I think there is a welling of people just exploding out of anger. And I've noticed a lot of YouTube channels being shut down again. But they're ones that are not really famous people. Like, I think they can't do it to, for example, Black Pigeon Speaks. He's huge and he always does very good videos, and he's managed not to get shut down. But I know similar ones just saying exactly what he's saying that have been shut down. And I'm just thinking it's because they're just not big enough and people just don't notice it. Don't notice it anymore. So if you've managed to build up a following, you're more likely not to get shut down. But I think they're trying to cut down the new ones that are rising and try to stem this kind of avalanche that's happening, really. Another thing I also want to say too is that I'm getting really annoyed that people, I think that the big issue is immigration, and yet anybody who talks about it is automatically right-wing. But what if you're not right-wing? This is what I said before about this fake kind of left-right paradigm, because there are lots of left-wing countries in Europe, East Europe, who aren't in favour of mass immigration, and they're not right-wing. So this is a fake thing, and what they're trying to do is push people who come up and start questioning the government's policies on this, and like, you know, why are we doing this? This is totally insane. And straight away, what they'll do is they'll go on YouTube and they'll see lots of people talking about it, and they'll see the majority are alt-right or right-wing, and then they're kind of being pushed to the right, really, when really it shouldn't be that way. It's just a normal human right to want space and to want strong fences. And it's that old, sorry to go on about the cliche, but it's, you know, strong fences make good neighbours, and they do. And actually, Black Pigeon Speaks' latest video made some really good points about studies about diversity and how, and, you know, where are the places where it's worked, where there's been no, you know, where it's been harmonious and there's been no friction and there's been no fights or whatever. And he picked one example. It was Switzerland. And you know why? Because the different ethnic groups that live in Switzerland are all separated. They'll have their own areas, and they have autonomy there, and that's it. So that's what it is. It's basically boundaries. And to do with this, let's go back to the full moon again, is Neptune. Neptune's terrible at boundaries. It doesn't do boundaries. And Neptune is the immune system as well. So, you know, obviously illnesses, we get them when our immune system has been run down, and we're absorbing too much from the environment. Obviously, if you shut yourself off too much as well, if you live in a bubble, in a plastic bubble, then you're not going to build any immunity at all, because you're just too sanitized. So, you know, it's always about a balance. It's always about a balance. And now I just think whatever's happening in the world now is happening for a reason. It's happening naturally. It's people's natural responses to basically what amounts to demographic engineering by governments, and it's by design. If it wasn't happening, if it was happening naturally, I don't think there would be these problems. So it's a normal reaction, and it's starting to be felt now. And as I said in my little rant video about the working class and to defend them against the media elite, they do all the virtue signaling, but they don't live in it because they're in their own little bubble, protected from it. So it's the working class who are on the front line of all this change. Now, it also did occur to me that it's a bit different in Britain. So I'm talking from a British point of view because I'm not sure about how your communities work there. It seems that it's a lot more divided because you've got you're not so packed in so tightly. So I'm not sure if the working class really are the front line of it in America or not. But I can tell you in England they are, and we are. So I'm speaking from that point of view. But the question is really, how do we keep ourselves healthy when we're being assaulted at all levels by media that is there to get you angry all the time? And I don't want to spend all my life being angry about the demographic engineering that is out of my hands. And I certainly don't want to be angry about perceived invaders in my neighbourhood either, because it's not their fault. They're not the people I'm angry with at all. I must make that really clear. The people I'm angry with are the middle class liberals who are absolute hypocrites, who, when given the choice of where to live, they don't live in the diverse areas. They really don't. So, and I'll just point that out to them. You know, whenever I get into a conversation with them, I'll say, well, why did you pick where you're living? And they'll say, oh, because the schools are so good. Are they? Is that really why? Anyway, so they're the people I'm the most angry with. But I also have to channel that anger into just thinking, well, you know what? Armed with the knowledge that I know now, is that people will move out of the areas that don't resonate with their energy, that are too violent for them or are too edgy, and they'll move to more peaceful areas. Like attracts like, and everyone will naturally gravitate to the areas that they feel comfortable in, and we don't really have to worry about it because then that way we can avoid conflict. You know, because if governments want to force people into close proximity with other people, and you're pushing people together, you're invading their space, their personal space. We all know that. You know, when you're crushed in a tube train on the underground and everyone's squashed in together, nobody's comfortable. Nobody will look you in the eye, will they? Whereas you'll look at someone in the eye from a distance, but as soon as we're cramped together, that's when friction comes, and it's just a natural thing. And it's not evil to start feeling irritated by that when it's pushed, because you can feel it. So this is the Neptune energy. Is it the empathic nurse who has so much empathy? She feels what you feel, and there's no boundaries between you, or is it a torturer? Because, you know, if somebody says, oh, I'm doing this for your own good, you know, take this medicine, it's good for you, and they don't let up telling you what's good for you, then it's torture. So that really is what Virgo Decan 2 is all about. And this is what we're feeling from the media. It's torturous. It's like, no, this is what's good for you. This is really good for you. There's something wrong with you if you don't like this. And look, we're all happy with it, so what's wrong with you? Because all the people that are really happy with it don't actually live with it. So get your space, get your nice blue-green bath and an Amazonite crystal, and don't be ashamed of speaking your truth. All right then. All the best. Bye-bye.